Hey, I'm Jay Feza from Rebel.media. I'm right now here with the one and only Alissa Golob, who worked for CLC, but then she left CLC, started up her own organization called Right Now, and that organization, Right Now, is currently the head honcho in getting political activism, people who are pro-life, into politics. How are you doing, Alissa?
Good. Thanks for having me, Jay.
And congratulations on Andrew Scheer winning. You support Andrew Scheer during the election, correct?
Yes, our organization Right Now interviewed 11 out of the 13 candidates, and we sent out a suggested ballot for people to use. And so we ranked candidates based on 3 criteria. One was their pro-life voting record, one was their winnability, and one was their policies and principles moving forward. So the ranking that we had was Pierre Lemieux #1, Andrew #2. So we did endorse him at the top of the ballot.
And so you endorsed Andrew Scheer because you felt like he had more of a chance of winning over Charles St. Pierre. So it's more like a more practical, realistic approach?
Well, all 3 were 100% pro-life, so the winnability was taken into consideration along with their principles and policies moving forward. And Andrew had a very strong platform with both his freedom of speech, with tax-free maternity benefits. That, along with the pro-life voting record, increased him on the ballot. Yes.
I mean, do you feel like Andrew Scheer will bring in abortion as the #1 issue, or will he focus on other issues that are affecting the Conservative Party? Because I feel like abortion is one of those issues that he probably won't make his centerpiece.
I agree. Throughout his campaign, that was not the focus. And, despite the fact that he is pro-life and has that pro-life voting record, I think right now he's going to focus on unifying the party, which is something that includes social conservatives, which we're happy about. But as a pro-life movement, we don't expect him to push this issue forward, especially when the caucus isn't completely united on it, but to focus on the areas where they are united and where all Canadians are united. And some of that includes abortion, but until we actually have enough pro-life MPs in the House of Commons, then we don't expect a pro-life leader to lead the charge on this.
Okay, so currently we do have a pro-life leader, but he's not going to put abortion in the centerpiece issue. I mean, realistically speaking, what's the difference between someone like Andrew Scheer and Bernier, whereas Bernier would table the issue? I mean, what's the realistic political difference between Andrew Scheer and Bernier? I'm just not really seeing the difference between those 2 candidates, because I'm not even sure if Andrew Scheer himself will actually table a pro-life legislation. So, I mean, what's the difference between both of them if they're going to allow the party to do what they want?
There wasn't much difference in terms of allowing private members' bills to put forward, issues on abortion and to have free votes both within the cabinet and backbenchers. The difference being is that Andrew Scheer himself is pro-life. He understands the cause. Bernier says he is pro-choice and also understands, and as a libertarian, understands the need for debate. So the difference would just be their voting record and their personal stances on the issue, which do go a long way when it comes to various appointments or things like that within the party. So
just to be clear, it's because he's personally pro-life that we should care about him and vote for him rather than, Maxine, because he's personally pro-choice, even though politically speaking, there's not much of a difference.
Well, one is obviously going to be more sympathetic to the cause, more sympathetic to social conservatives, but I wouldn't have been upset if either had won. We helped Andrew because he was on the top of our ballot, but both would have allowed the freedom of backbenchers to put forward this issue and to vote. So both were positive options, and I wouldn't have been upset if either had won.
Well, I mean, it's wonderful that you won the election, and we basically got a pro-life candidate within heading the party, so that's amazing. Do you feel like this will further introduce legislation against abortion here in Canada, or do you think abortion is becoming, because a lot of people would say abortion is a dead issue, and I don't think it's a dead issue in the public mindset. I think it's a dead issue. If anything, it would be a dead issue politically speaking. So do you feel like it might be a little bit of a dead issue, or do you feel like people like Andrew Scheer are pushing these issues to the forefront?
Well, the media, like whether it's a pro-choice or pro-life columnist, have been unanimous in the fact that the social conservatives and pro-life voters were a very strong voice when electing this leader, showing that the pro-life movement is a force to be reckoned with. And so we do have a strong voice when it comes to Canadian politics and when it comes to nominating and electing pro-life candidates. And that's the area where we have the most strength, which is the area that we're going to focus on. Also, our organization doesn't operate under conjecture. We operate under results and numbers. And studies and statistics consistently show that the majority of Canadians, regardless of what party they're from, there was a recent Insights West poll that said, 53% of NDP, 49% of Liberals, and 66% of Conservatives all want some type of restrictions on abortion. And the majority of those between the ages of 18 and 34. So this isn't a partisan issue. It's not a religious issue. And it's not an issue that only a certain group of people care about. It spans all different types of people. And so this is something that we can really move forward on. Even when Mark Warwa put forward his motion 408, he had a study done that, over 90% of Canadians condemn sex-selective abortion. So we're one of the only democratic countries in the world with absolutely no law on abortion. So our country has to catch up with the rest of the world and actually implement these policies that Canada wants.
And in order to implement these policies, we need pro-life politicians to start running and to start winning elections, and we need more people. What exactly is your ground game to getting political pro-life candidates within the office? Because I understand right now has a significantly different approach than the Campaign Life Coalition.
Well, our focus is to nominate and elect pro-life candidates. We were filling a void in the pro-life movement because, many pro-lifers, as people know, stand on the sidewalk. They potentially protest. They reach out to try and change people's minds on the issue. But there was no organization that was solely focused to bringing pro-lifers into the nomination and election process. And everybody who's ever worked on a campaign knows the importance of door knocking and knows the importance of getting out the vote. And so that's where we're plugging in pro-lifers to make the most amount of difference when it comes to electing more pro-life politicians. So we have those votes when the time comes when these bills are introduced.
And do you think the approach that right now is present, as in we have multiple pro-life organizations, is preferable over the approach of having one central pro-life organization to help these candidates get into the office?
I think that it's important that pro-life candidates know that they have the support of a large voting bloc and of people who will put their money where their mouth is, who won't just say or demand that the politicians do something or say something, but they actually go out and help them get elected. And that not only builds political capital, but it has tangible results. And that's where we see other countries like America moving forward with their door-knocking campaigns and helping, congressmen get elected. And that's where we can make the most difference here in Canada as well.
So legally speaking, once we get these pro-life candidates within the office, what approach should we take in, introducing pro-life legislation? So should we do incremental approaches? Should we do altogether? What exactly is the approach that you would want to take?
I think we have to learn a lot from what other countries have done and what's been successful in countries that are similar to ours. And in the States under Obama, the American pro-life movement was able to pass over 200 pieces of incremental legislation. And that's not just restricting abortion, but it's also increasing the knowledge for women who are going in and having their abortions, both about prenatal development as well as the abortion procedure. For example, one of the most successful pieces of legislation is an ultrasound bill. So a woman has to view an ultrasound before she gets an abortion. That is increasing her knowledge on the issue and on her pregnancy before she makes that very critical decision. Parental consent is another very positive bill that decreases abortion numbers. Right to know legislation, where women are required to know both the negative and the positive side effects or whatever the abortion clinic puts forward as the option of abortion. They have to know both sides of the issue. So these are all incremental pieces of legislation that does tangibly decrease abortion numbers that the majority of Americans do agree with, that are easily passed both provincially here in Canada, that are easily passed provincially here in Canada.
So you want to pass legislation like ultrasounds? They have to check ultrasound before they have an abortion, something like that?
yeah, different incremental pieces of legislation, both with regards to the abortion procedure and then also with restricting abortion in a way that Canadians agree, because we know that, the majority of Canadians do want restrictions on abortion, that we're one of the only countries in the world with no law. So you can have an abortion up to 9 months of pregnancy in Canada. And that's just, the majority of Canadians just don't agree with that. And so our policy should represent that opinion.
I know about the Unborn Victims Act. Any other legislations or bills that are being passed right now or that are being looked at or debated right now in Parliament, ones that Andrew Scheer himself has supported, just for our audience members so they can know, any of those bills right now in Parliament?
There's no current bill that's tabled in the House of Commons, but throughout the last, 4 or 5 years, there have been multiple pieces of legislation. Stephen Woodworth's Motion 312, which wanted to set up a committee to determine when life begins, because our current law is based on a over 70-year-old law, and then the motion to condemn sex-selective abortion, which was also presented, and then Cassie Amali's law, of course, which every single Conservative member of Parliament voted in favor of and had unanimous support both from pro-choice groups and pro-life groups, because women who are choosing to keep their babies are being killed purely because they're pregnant, and the murderer only gets one sentence. So that is something that, should be looked at by our Justice Minister and by the criminal courts.
All right, last question. What do you feel like is the future of the pro-life movement? And in particular, what do you feel like right now's role in the future of the pro-life movement is, as what Andrew Scheer's role is in the future of the pro-life movement here in Canada?
Well, I think the future of the pro-life movement is to start doing things that actually make a difference, that actually work, and that actually get results. And, a lot of the times pro-lifers continue to do things that they've done for the last 40 years, and that just doesn't fly today with the birth of social media and with the changing political climate. So I would encourage people to analyze what they're actually doing and see if it's actually making a difference. And if it's not, then to stop doing it and to gravitate towards more campaigns, that are actually getting results. And I would say that our organization is achieving results by tapping pro-lifers into the political movement, into politics, into campaigns. We actually are getting our candidates nominated and elected, and you can see this from provincially to federally to the leadership. So I think that's where the future of the pro-life movement is, and so I would really encourage people to check us out and get involved if they are pro-life and want to do something that is results-driven and effective.
All right, thank you so much for joining me. That's Alissa Golob from organization Right Now. She's the head of that organization and founder of that organization, which is one of the more larger pro-life organizations dedicated to taking political politicians, those within politics, into those pro-life, people who have pro-life positions within the politics and within the parliament. Thank you so much for joining me, Alissa.
Thanks, Jay.
Appreciate it.